What's going on YouTube? It's your man Soul. Welcome back to the channel. You know what it is when you clicked it, and today I'm going to be going over or just giving my opinion on the changes that's upcoming for Ulduar and some of the other changes coming in phase 3 that launches June 20th. So without further ado, let's jump in. Alright, so let's begin, and before I start reading off, I do want to say that I really didn't have any high hopes for what they were going to do with the changes as far as Ulduar in phase 3. I really thought it was just going to be, sweeping nerfs, boss health, nerf, boss damage, nerf, certain mechanics gone. This person doesn't do this at this point anymore. Berserk timers now are 20 minutes, like things like that. And I am pleasantly surprised that it is not that, and I'm happy that they made more quality of life changes versus just sweeping nerfs. Even though Ulduar, to me, especially now that I've done it again, isn't the greatest raid of all time as people would have proclaimed, it's still a great raid, don't get me wrong. I think it still cracks a lot of top 5 and top 10 lists. It's just not the greatest raid of all time. I think we kind of can take off the roast into lenses now, but I never wanted to see Ulduar go to the wayside of just, all right, it's super nerfed, you can literally waltz in there fresh 80 and get all the great loot that comes from there. I'm glad that at least its damage, its health values are still intact, so it presents some sort of challenge. So I'm happy they didn't do that. But now let's read some of these, bullet points and talk about the Ulduar changes. So the first one is the Expedition Base Camp Teleporter. It's not always active. I think that's just a convenience change. Nothing really much to say about there. It's good though. Next, we have players may now use the teleporter to port directly to the antechamber, even if you haven't killed Flame Leviathan or XT. So this is really good because a lot of people, at least my guild, a lot of pug runs and a lot of friends groups that I ran with, they skipped they skipped Razor Scale and Ignis a lot. So, and some guilds I even seen have done just Flame Leviathan. A lot of pugs I see when they're advertising for hard modes, not doing Flame Leviathan, not doing Memoron, because even though Flame Leviathan to me isn't the hardest hard mode, like it's a pretty easy hard mode, like you're really bolstered by the vehicles that you have, right? It can be a great time sink. So not having to commit to that, especially in a pug, maybe not in a organized raid setting, this change probably really won't matter, because you're gonna, you were killing Flame Leviathan anyway. But for pug groups, for GDKPs, this is a really good change because you don't have to roll the dice on a time sink on Flame Leviathan. So, or even XT, XT can still give groups some trouble. So I'm happy about this, and I like this change. Moving on, we have, after defeating Kolagarn, the door to General Vezek's room will open and his trash will immediately spawn. This is really good because what this really means, this bullet point and the second bullet point really means that Kolagarn is really the only roadblock to basically picking where you want to go. I guess technically you could look at Vezek's as another roadblock because you have to kill him before you get to Yogg. But with Vezek's loot being so good, I highly doubt guilds would have, or groups in general, would have skipped Vezek's even if he was skippable, because his loot is just so great. So I don't really look at him as a roadblock. You're probably going to kill him anyway. But Kolagarn being, in my opinion, the easiest boss in Ulduar, being the only roadblock to having so much player agency in terms of where you want to go, amazing change. Next, we have Yogg Saron will drop additional fragments depending on how many Titan Keepers you have assisting you during your raid. That is a really, really important change. So with 0 Titan Keepers, you will get 3 fragments. With 1 Titan Keeper assisting, you'll get 2, and with 2 or more, you'll get 1. I don't know anyone who still, runs 2 Titan Keepers or 3 light Yogg. To be quite honest with you, I don't think I've ran in a group that's done 2 or 3 light. So that one you can just scratch off in my head. But with 1 light always getting 2, that's gonna help a lot of guilds. That's gonna help a lot of guilds really fast track or finish Val'anyr. And I know 0 light can still be tough. You can still be susceptible to, people not managing their sanity right, random, malady overlaps. It can really, be a strenuous fight even to this day, even without major changes, or especially without major changes, I should say. So I think the reward of always getting 3 when you kill 0 light Yogg is gonna be really great. You're gonna see GDKPs skyrocket with prices, not skyrocket with prices, but with popularity on frag runs, because this is really gonna help out. So I really like these changes. Like I said, if you can't do 0 light or you can't pug 0 light, 1 light is pretty easy as well, and you're gonna get 2, so that's really good. I like the fact that you're fast tracking Valeniers. Some guilds don't even have 1 Valenier yet. Like, I know in the entirety of Ulduar's lifespan, they still haven't gotten a Valenier. Just been unlucky, people miss raids, whatever have you. So I like this. The next point, the hour timer for defeating Algalon has been removed. This is also another good pain point that was removed. Now, I don't think the hour time frame was a pain point necessarily. I think it put things into perspective when leading a raid group, right? So people, in my opinion, tend to not really put into perspective how long a wipe can take. The wipe, the run back, the rebuff, the food, and then the ready check. Like, that time eats up a lot of just raid time, especially when you see it up against a timer of an hour. So I think removing the timer really does help out, especially for guilds who didn't have wipe protection. Like, if you had to run back every time you wiped on Algalon, you're basically only getting like 10 pulls in instead of like 20. So I like the fact that the hour is being removed, and to be quite honest, I don't think it does too much to change the difficulty of Algalon. Yes, the timer is part of his difficulty because you have to be focused, but without changing any health values or any damage values, Algalon's still a pretty challenging fight if you haven't done them yet, or if you've been wiping the silliness. So the hour time frame kind of just relieves the pressure, because you still could not kill Algalon in a raid night. You could wipe every single time. So that, just removing that extra layer of pressure, I think helps out more than it hurts. And now Algalon will always drop 2 fragments. Again, another good way to fast track a legendary. So I really like the Ulduar changes. Like, I think these are right where I would say they should be in terms of helping the player out and not completely just making Ulduar irrelevant, which, even though they said this before, Blizzard says a lot of things, right? So even though they said we want to make sure Ulduar, you know, is remembered and it stands the test of time and it's just not completely obsolete when TOC releases. Like I said, Blizzard says a lot of things, so they could have immediately changed their mind the day after they said that statement. So I am happy to see these list of changes and quality of life changes coming to Ulduar. All right, so the last thing I want to touch on is the passage that I've highlighted here at the end of the post, and it says, "At this time, we have no plans to implement any sort of post-nerf version of Ulduar, as we are very satisfied with the level of difficulty of Ulduar right now, especially with the gear that's going to become available in Trial of the Crusader and Trial of the Grand Crusader." So basically what this means is they're not planning to put any nerfs into Ulduar, because TOC and TOGC will allow the power creep to effectively nerf Ulduar itself. They don't really have to implement anything. Now, will Blizzard hold themselves to this? Who knows? They could release next week that we're nerfing all bosses health by 10%, because people are still struggling with Algalon, they're still struggling with hard mode Freya, they're still struggling with 25-man hard mode IC. So who knows? But right now they haven't nerfed anything, and I'm happy. I think it preserves the prestige of Ulduar. I think while preserving that prestige, it does not overshadow the loot that you get from TOC, well, really TOGC, but it doesn't overshadow TOGC. So I think we can have those two things simultaneously exist. I think certain things in Ulduar are still going to be better. A lot of the tier in T9 is kind of lackluster for some classes, so we'll see who makes the changes there. Obviously, casters still are going to want Flare of the Heavens, you know, as a competitor to Reign of the Dead from Anubarak. Obviously, healers are still going to want to complete the Valenier. So I think Ulduar and TOC can simultaneously coexist, and guilds can plan around where they want to go. Like my guild, we can do TOC one night and then head to Ulduar and pinpoint the bosses that we want the next night. And it helps that, you know, TOC isn't a large raid, right? It's 5 bosses with no trash. It's a boss rush. So it doesn't take too much time to clear TOC once you get into the groove and everyone knows the fight. You have your strategies down packed. So I like this change. Only time will tell if Blizzard holds themselves to this, but we will see in the future to come. But that's really it for the video, guys. I thank you for sticking with me, and if you like this video or you learned something in this video, please give it a like and consider subscribing. Other than that, you guys know the drill. You've been great. I've been Soul, and I'm out. Peace.